As we reported earlier in the show, the central bank raised the statutory reserve ratio, or SRR, to 8% in April. And that was to keep a lid on demand-side pressure, the bank disclosed in a press statement following this decision. Experts say that, in fact, the SRR might rise further as liquidity builds up in the economy. Here's Anushan Sevaraja with more.
Welcome to the Voice of Business. I have with me LMD columnist and economist with Standard Chartered Bank, Samantha Amarasinghe. Now, Samantha, you write at length in the forthcoming issue of LMD about statutory reserve ratio, or SRR, as it is known, and that you expect it to rise further, perhaps to 10%. Can you elaborate on this?
Sure. Well, yes, at the time of writing, which was just prior to the central bank's policy meeting on the 16th of May, we were definitely expecting that the central bank would use the SRR in the months ahead, if required, to drain further liquidity from the banking system, as liquidity has been one of the key drivers of inflation. That said, we also expected the central bank to maintain the status quo on policy rates, with no further SRR hikes yet, as the last SRR hike came into effect just 2 weeks prior. So these all came into fruition at the last meeting. Inflation, as you know, touched 9.8% year-on-year in April, but this was largely due to the base effect and not of major concern at the time, thus providing further room for the central bank to closely monitor the impact of the 1 percentage point SRR hike without taking further action at this juncture. Concerns about excess liquidity, which is now at around Sri Lankan rupees 65 billion, exacerbating inflationary expectations still remain. Hence, we hold our view that SRR hikes up to 10% may be on the cards in the future, as at this juncture the SRR is the preferred policy tool to tackle inflation. We believe policy rate hikes at the moment would dampen demand and economic activity.
You also say that you, quote, expect monetary tightening in Sri Lanka to be gradual, as the central bank will attempt to control any build-up of demand-side pressure through liquidity management before resorting to rate hikes, unquote. Does this mean that we can expect interest rates to remain relatively low this year?
Yes, it's safe to conclude that interest rates will remain relatively low this year. Inflation is expected to moderate in the second half of the year, as explained earlier. And the SRR seems to be the preferred policy tool, as growth remains the main priority. We are confident that any upside risks to inflation will be handled by SRR tightening if required. The May inflation print will be closely watched, and if inflation is showing signs of moderating, we may be inclined to change our view to expect no further rate hikes this year. So policy rates would be remaining then at 7%. As the repo rate and 8.5% as the reverse repo. However, if demand-driven inflationary pressures are still prevalent, we will be compelled to hold our view of the possibility of cumulative rate hikes of up to 50 basis points by year-end.
On the inflation front, Samantha, given that the price of oil has eased somewhat, can we expect some respite? What impact does the price of oil have on inflation, given that it affects the price of just about everything one needs?
Yes, we can expect some respite, most definitely. Fuel comprises approximately 18% of the CPI basket in Sri Lanka, next to only food, which comprises 46%. So it has a significant impact on inflation, and it feeds into all productive sectors of the economy. Petroleum, as you know, comprises approximately 22% of our import expenditure, and we had intimated earlier that if the average Brent crude oil price rose to $111 a barrel in 2011, which is our Standard Chartered Bank forecast for average crude oil prices, this could add potentially $1.2 billion to our import bill. However, with crude oil prices correcting over the past week, despite the ongoing supply-side risks suggesting less pressure to increase output and implying a near-term floor of around $90 a barrel, approximately $0.4 billion would be added to the import bill, which is a saving of $0.8 billion than if the price stabilized at the $111 a barrel. So that said, crude oil prices do remain choppy, however, as macro concerns, US dollar weakness and specific concerns over US oil demand continue to dominate price direction.
That was Samantha Amarasinghe speaking to Anushan Selvaraja. Thank you for watching our show. We'll see you again next week at the same time.